Evan Chain, absent. Elizabeth Shepherd.
Here.
Nick Harris, absent. Arthur Johnson, absent. Caitlin Acona.
Here.
Essence Banks, absent. Cynthia Sylvain Lear.
Here.
Ryan Macy.
Here. Right. Pass that mic if you don't mind bringing it back up. It's easier to pass. Thank you. Okay. So unfortunately, Essence is stuck at the DMV. I know no one envies her. And Marianne's going to be running late. Arthur's going to be running late. And Beverly Wright may also be here as well. So we hope to have a few more members join us today. Today is largely a discussion day. We want to talk about our priorities for this coming year and brainstorm how we want to schedule our next plan. We also want to review a few remaining items from the last presentation under the topic of resilience. And we also want to hear from the great work of the first ever recycling project at Mardi Gras. So we've got some exciting topics today, and hopefully we can spend some time in the discussion. And I believe as a part of the resilience discussion, we wanted to also address the ordinance that's been proposed based on our committee's recommendations to increase recycling and composting at the city as well. So that's the rough agenda. Anyone have any comments on the agenda topics? Love to open it up for announcements of any kind, updates. Cynthia, we'd love to hear from you on how Mardi Gras went.
Mardi Gras was very, very successful from the sanitation point of view. We were very pleased that all of our planning really was very effective. And so from that standpoint, we did have about 125 pieces of equipment. We finished cleaning almost every parade, actually within 2 hours. Our goal was actually within 3 hours. Mardi Gras Day is a little bit different because it's a massive volume of cleanup, a little bit different than just after the parades. And so from that standpoint, again, we were very pleased. Mardi Gras takes a tremendous effort, so it isn't just the city departments. We use Job One, a lot of contractors for supplemental equipment and supplemental labor. So we started a program with Job One, a program where persons really needed to work. And we started with 50 people in 2014. This year, that participation with Job One, Black Men of Labor, resulted in 195 persons from Job One and 50 persons from Black Men of Labor. We actually are in the process of hiring some of those persons into permanent positions with the city. So that is part of our success. The total number of people is about 974 when you include Empire, our contractor in the French Quarters, the DDD and their staff, as well as all of the city staff and NLPD that we used for Mardi Gras. But the goal is to clean the routes so that it does not look like a parade past. And I think that from the comments we've received, we accomplished that goal. The other part of that this year, working with Public Works, we were very conscious about the beads and storm drains. And so Public Works put down gutter buddies or screens on some of the French drains downtown St. Charles Avenue. Those were very effective, and citizens helped us a lot. If the gutter buddies were shifted or moved, they helped us keep them in place. So we will be doing more in coming years with Mardi Gras. And of course, I don't want to steal thunder, I just want to do the right thing of really thanking YOC and ARC and Republic Services. I know you hear more about what happened during Mardi Gras. But there was a recycling project, Mardi Gras, in 2014, 2012 through 2014. And that was done with volunteers in conjunction. And so it's very, very very encouraging, and we'll be continuing to look at things that can happen with recycling during Mardi Gras going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's really exciting, and we really appreciate your support and partnership with Wild Sea Recycles, and congrats on what seems to be one of the best years yet in terms of cleanup. Anybody else have any announcements?
I do have a few more. So we had a recycling drop-off on February the 17th, and persons brought us beads reminding the public that we accept beads at every monthly recycling drop-off that we have at the Department of Sanitation from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And on March 10th, our next second Saturday recycling drop-off, we are calling it Mardi Gras Bead Day. We saw lots of places. Strive on Napoleon was accepting beads, and we had persons bringing things there. ARC has a lot of drop-off locations for people to bring beads, and we certainly want to continue to expand the partnership we have with ARC of collecting beads that persons caught but now don't want them in their attic or in the corner, and so we want to give them an alternative for beads. And of course, on March 10th, we also accept our normal paper, plastic, cardboard, e-waste, up to 4 tires, batteries, light bulbs, and glass, and that's been very, very successful from that collection. And one other thing is there will be a Leaders Against Litter. Keep New Orleans beautiful, keep Louisiana beautiful, and it's something that we try to do every year. So March 23rd, 2018 will be the day, and more will be coming out in regards to that from Keep New Orleans Beautiful. But please keep that on your radar. Litter and trash is a major problem nationwide and certainly in our city. And we absolutely need to keep bringing it forward that this is the responsibility of every citizen, not to drop litter on the ground, but to put it in public receptacles and to recycle as much as possible. Thank you.
This is Jeff Canton. Just wanted to thank everybody for a good year of service. I hope this will be my last meeting as part of the EAC, and it's been a great honor to serve the city in this capacity. So I look forward to seeing the committee's accomplishments.
And Jeff, I want to really thank you for being on the committee and for all the hard work that you put forth, and we'll miss you. Thank you for everything you've done.
Can I just say something really quickly? This is Eileen Lipinski with Councilmember Ramsey's office, and I really wanted to thank Jeff for all of his hard work on the committee. He came on related to the electric vehicle legislation, which was a great success, and Jeff has been a great partner with our office on that, and just in the community in general on a lot of environmental issues, especially with solar, which is his area of expertise. And so I look forward to continuing to work with you, Jeff, from our office and the city, and thank you for all your work on the community.
Other announcements? All right. Moving forward on the agenda, we'd love to hear from the pilot Mardi Gras recycling project. Brett. Hannah?
Yes, good job.
Hi, so I'm a project leader with Wild Sea Recycles. Wild Sea Recycles has since 2012 partnered with local events and festivals on strategies to make them greener. This year, we decided to tackle Mardi Gras, the largest event of all. Partnered with ARC of Greater New Orleans, Department of Sanitation, the crews of Topin, Ferret, and Republic Recycling to have a pilot program spanning what was planned to be 2 days with 6 stations, passed out bags for beads. We passed out bags for refuse. What we saw was tremendous public support. We had about 200 volunteers altogether throughout the community sign up for this, but then we also had just a tremendous support on the ground. We saw less than a 1% contamination rate, which normally we shoot for about 6 to 8% in most of our events, which that's really the metric that we kind of tie back to a really enthusiastic public response. They were really making sure that they were paying attention and, you know, reading the bags, and you know, less than 1% was really stellar. So mostly cans, some bottles, and quite a few beads. So I'm gonna pass it over to Brett. Brett's one of our community volunteers. We have Wildfield's mission is to train leadership and young professionals throughout the city by working on projects like this. So pass that over now.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, so I would like to specifically talk about the public response, which I think blew everyone's mind, just how much the public and the media was interested in this concept. And I think we've all noted that this is probably something we've never seen before. I've never seen it before, being a resident of New Orleans all my life. So I think the time is really right to make some moves on this. And that's why I would like to sort of, now that Mardi Gras is behind us, talk with you guys about what parallel efforts we can be working on throughout the year. I think there's some low-hanging fruit out there, and you know, just as a concerned citizen, I feel like I can just come out and sort of say some things and ideas that sort of seem like potential avenues for me, even if they might be a little sensitive with, you know, the crews and the city government. But I'm specifically interested in talking about the permit to parade costs, which I have heard are quite low, and how that pairs off with all the hard work that you do, Cynthia. And we know that you have a limited budget, and we'd like to understand how we can maybe get those two things in line a little bit more. So I'd like to open that up for discussion with the committee, whether that be today or in the future, about how we can start to really work on waste management plans with these parade routes, because they do cause so many costs to be inflicted upon you, and I know you have so little to work with. It seems quite fair that they could be contributing a little bit more. So that's all I want to talk about today.
I have a question. I can ask a question. Can y'all say this in English? I'm saying, like, y'all talking about a project. I have feel when I just wanted to know if I could ask a question. Y'all working on projects?
Yeah, that's
Y'all working on projects?
Yeah, I think we can open up for comments.
Yeah, I know I was supposed to I signed the card that I was asking for, but I just wanted to know, I was running for mayor. I just wanted it in simple terms, like to what we discussing right now. I just wanted it in simple terms. What kind of projects y'all working on? That's my question to them. Like,
So what we worked on is a pilot program for recycling. Sorry. So this year specifically, we worked on a pilot program to implement some recycling measures during Mardi Gras parades, recycling both beads to art and cans and bottles in recycling. So we're a nonprofit, and through community volunteers, and with ARC's collaboration, we were basically just along the parade route to parade goers. We were in the moment recycling any unwanted beads and throws, and then just recycling, whatever beer cans, soda cans, and water bottles out on the parade route.
I heard about you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
Cynthia, would you like to respond to Brett's question about the permitting costs for parade route?
So that is not under the Department of Sanitation, but it is absolutely something that, as citizens, could be brought up. I will tell you that there have been several programs where that cost has been looked at and possible amendments to those costs have been proposed over the years. It is an ongoing discussion. What we do see with a lot of the crews is they do a lot of public service things in the community. It may be the right time to bring that up again, and certainly budgets and costs are done now for next year. The other thing, and I would love to talk with YLC now that this is over, and with Art, I have some ideas as well, and some things that I would like to propose to crews. Certainly Femme Fatale, one of the larger crews now for Mardi Gras, does not give their riders any plastic bags. They take everything, load it into another, if you will, cloth bag. And that's what they take on the float. They've done this now for 2 years. We would love to see all the crews do that. Certainly the plastic bags do also go into the drains and can be a problem. We realize that all the logistics are very different, just like with the Department of Sanitation. So I'm saying that from a standpoint that we'd like to see that. We need to meet with the crews, have conversations, look at logistics. And again, anything that we do for the debtor of New Orleans, we have to take everyone's logistics issues into consideration. Let's work towards some things, but let's work towards it together. You know, Art had some issues with some of the beads where they were broken or dirty, and they looked at, you know, the amount of time they took to sort. Republic was wonderful for them to donate, and I was really happy to facilitate that connection with Art and YLC, and to put a truck in the parade. That is a tremendous cost, and that was what we were concerned about. We were concerned about contamination. The logistics of the pilot project on a Saturday where we were not immediately following the parade works out for the pilot. We've got to work out some things where that's not the case. And at night, when it's tougher to get citizens in that right mode. Vertigra, as I mentioned, tried it. We tried and hoped that they would continue. But there's some other things I think we can do, and I'll just say it. Here's the thought. Just like we watched Strive, people bringing their, maybe the businesses along the parade routes would sponsor a cart for beads. That way people who are collecting them, not the ones on the ground that have been trampled in mud or whatever, have a place to bring those beads along the route. And then working with collecting the beads from containers. So there are a lot of things I think we can do now that we have a lot of people who are very interested in doing it. That may work for all of us, and that is something I'd love to partner with YLC on. And certainly those businesses or even homes or churches or schools getting the recognition of being a drop-off, again, for those Mardi Gras beads. Maybe recycling, but we can talk about that. Let's really have some thoughtful discussions, see how we can work together. From the Department of Sanitation, we would certainly rather not collect more that does not get recycled. We want as many things recycled as possible. I think the crews too, because we do meet with them at the Mayor's Mardi Gras Advisory Committee, and for several years, that's how Femme Fatale started. And there are other crews who are recycling their boxes at the start. We're seeing more of that. And that is what helped us a lot this year, is that we weren't doing a lot of the pickups at the start because crews were recycling. So we want to get more and more of those crews doing that. That will help all of us in the process. And then getting the businesses and the citizens involved, I'm excited and very encouraged. Thank you.
On the committee again for the 1% contamination rate, that's pretty phenomenal, and I do think that speaks to the public. I mean, from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like you've got some pretty great support from the public. And that, speaking of that, I'd like to invite Is it Renee?
Renata.
Renata, I'm sorry. Renata, if you'd like to give your comments on Mardi Gras recycling as well.
Yeah, I really.
Can you speak to the mic, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much. I really applaud your efforts to collect the trash. I think that we really need to make an effort to reduce the amount of trash we generate because crews are throwing more and more beads, and I think that's why so many end up in the trash because I mean, I live on the Mardi Gras route. I've seen whole boxes of beads in the trash afterwards. People grab them and pour them in the trash, and Mardi Gras is over. We also need to be aware that those beads are toxic. There is this study from Howard Mielke from Tulane University that analyzed Mardi Gras beads, and they found that they have the same very similar footprint to the computer trash, the plastic trash that we export to China. They contain flame retardants, heavy metals. Kids have gotten sick by chewing on them. I wonder if crews are even aware that they're throwing stuff that's toxic, and when ARC is handling those, I wonder if it's even safe for the people who are recycling and sorting those beads. I think we really, I mean, it would, and those beads aren't cheap, but if crews would throw better throws like glass beads, they would not end up on the ground. They should just throw less. Yeah, and look into having non-toxic throws. We should talk with them about that. Also, can we have recycling bins all along the Mardi Gras route for cans, for example? Our garbage bins typically overflow because people think it's good if they put them in the garbage, and then our bins are overflowing. And yeah, I mean, really, there is such a concentrated route on St. Charles and Napoleon. Have recycling bins out there. And also, beads keep falling out of the trees and being smashed. We need to have a crew going along the route and collecting those beads. It's weeks after Mardi Gras that they keep falling out of the trees. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think, Cynthia, I think your idea to have businesses engaged is a great one, but I also think the city can take a leadership role in trying to find ways to encourage crews, the mayor's council, to be greener and, having bins at the start of routes where those cardboard boxes can get put, and also, putting recycling bins out along the parade route. I think there are ways to figure that out, and I do think, as a city, we should support being, good stewards of our environment and support our economy, and that's one way to do it.
And just to back that up, like even if the city was able to do, I know you say you can't follow immediately after some of the parades, but even if you can just do exactly what, just one time, one parade, just to say, hey, the city is stepping up, we're making this effort to recycle, just to show the city is ready to go and wants to move this effort forward.
I do hear all of the comments. As we've discussed before, the logistics are very different. And that's why we talked about the number of people, number of crews, staging, buses, movement. There are some things that I think we can do, and we have for years talked to the crews, and that's why we're seeing the cooperation now. It is not quick, not fast, as we would like to see it. It is happening. The issue with YLC having 200 volunteers, they were also manning those stations and instructing people on what to put in. As I mentioned, Mardi Gras did do recycling along the routes and also had volunteers at all of the containers. We have in the past put containers out, not for recycling, but thinking, okay, we'll just put containers out just for debris. This is several years ago. That's why it's very labor intensive to have people there and at every container. That's the issue that along the entire route. This was from Napoleon and Magazine to St. Charles and Jackson. When we are doing 4 parades, West Bank, East Bank, and on the day of Endymion, another section of the city. It is not a desire to do all of that or have people who can man along the stations, but part of the reason the contamination was low was the volume of volunteers standing at those locations and stations and looking bags. So we want to do this. I just don't want to oversimplify it like, oh gee, we can do it that way. We're working on it, and we'll continue to work on it, but in the interim, we'll look at all of those things that we can put into place, working with the crews, working with businesses, because again, from that standpoint, if a bin is at a location that is identified and it's for beans, that will help us a lot, because a lot of the businesses have people who are there, right, enjoying the parade because they're on the route. So we'll continue to talk about it and look at ways, and would love to continue to partner in alternatives that we can look at with YLC and with ARC, as we have in the past, and trying to increase the volume of things recycled for Mardi Gras and every other event in the city. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make one more brief comment, and that is that recycling and post-parade efforts are not the only way that we can deal with this issue. So I want to know specifically how we can start to talk about preemptive efforts that, it's early in the year, let's go ahead and get these conversations started. And whether that's bringing in someone from Muses and having them do this on a voluntary basis, I want to know what the criteria are that we can start asking of these crews to be more sustainable. And I want to know how we're going to implement that through ordinance, because I think that is part of the solution, not just recycling and what we do after parade.
And I think that you're correct. There are some changes that I've already proposed that may go through, but again, it is with a lot of discussions on making sure we understand both sides of this. So would be happy again to meet with you guys as you've done this, things that you can see, things we can do together to make this happen, and sooner more than later. Like next week, let's get a date and let's meet, and then let's look at strategies for moving forward. Would love to invite Tim Patel into that meeting, so maybe we can formally write down how they do it and educate other crews that it is not cost prohibitive for it to happen. It is doable, and I think we'll get even more participation. Thank you.
I'd also encourage you to meet with your city council member, and if anyone from the mayor's office, Kwame, if you would like to speak to any of this and how the mayor's office might be willing to have a meeting or to.
I think we're always interested to sit down with anybody who wants to have this kind of discussion. I'm not going to overcommit ourselves as we're kind of transitioning out. But I'm happy to kind of bring it up and kind of take that back and see what we can do.
Also, Life City's working with the Urban Conservancy to host a Green Mardi Gras Forum, and it would be wonderful to have the city publicly make some type of statement in support of the forum and support of the idea that we want to encourage crews to be greener. And I really want to make this statement because I feel like could be an elephant in the room. Just because we're greener doesn't mean we have less fun. Doesn't mean we lose any of the tradition, any of the beauty that we all love about Mardi Gras. And I don't think, I want to make sure we're not, having fear of that get in the way of creative solutions. So I think there are ways to do this and keep all that we love about Mardi Gras and also have a lot less waste. And I think those things are possible. In terms of next steps, maybe Laura, we could also have a meeting with Kwame talking about the incoming and and current administration and see if y'all might be willing to kind of co-sponsor a forum, or just, to me, we're as advisors, right? We're here to help give our advice as environmental experts. The city, you had the opportunity to really say, hey, how do we make this happen? How can we lead New Orleans forward and to a better future and one where we have all the tradition we love, but also less waste at the same time. And I think we appreciate your leadership, and that's something, at least as the EAC, I feel like I can encourage the city to do that. Does anyone else have anything else to say in terms of next steps for this issue and how we can help this good work continue to move forward?
To the comment about crews taking on a little more financial responsibility for cleanup, and that has been discussed, and that maybe it's not been pushed because of their the community work that they do throughout the year. I just want to point out that there's a lot of organizations and people that do community service, but they are still responsible for paying certain things, and they crews do provide a wonderful entertainment, wonderful time. They bring a lot of people to the city, but I don't think that should mean that they get to not have to pay for sanitation services when they are creating, a lot of throws that get on the ground. So I just want to point that out.
And just to echo the public support for this, I believe there was a petition. Brett, could you mind to speak to that?
Yeah, I wasn't involved in that petition. That's Aaron Biles from the Gulf Restoration Network, but I think he got over 14,000 signatures in order to ban Mardi Gras beads, which we know that that's not the solution, of course, but it is somewhere in the middle between unregulated throws and banning them altogether. And like I said, I think we really need to capitalize on the energy that the city has, especially now that we're just post Mardi Gras. We've just been through this sort of wet weather. It was super gross this year. I think the time to keep this conversation going and act on it is right now. So I just want to stress that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, I just want to say I volunteered, and it was wonderful work. It was at Brett, and it went really smoothly, and it was us handing bags to people, and they were very excited. And so it wasn't even us watching the people do it. It was, we gave them the information, and they did it. They had less than 1% contamination, so I just wanted to really emphasize that.
I just want to mention one quick thing.
Aaron got a lot of pushback on that petition, but I can personally testify he doesn't hate Mardi Gras because he was out there with his kids for the Tux Parade. And so his true intent is to try and clean things up for the city to make the city a better place, and he is not anti-Mardi Gras.
Yeah, we know we don't want to mess with people's beads now, but yeah, there are ways to do this. There are ways to do this, and we just require some innovation and collaboration. And thanks, Cynthia, for being open to this pilot. Congrats to y'all for pulling off a really great pilot, and thanks for your hard work and for helping make the city a better place. Moving on to the next item, Marianne, would you like to lead us into the next item?
Technical knowledge. Sorry. Okay. Hey, everybody. So we are moving on to look back at the committee recommendations on resilience from the last meeting. That we had a couple of things we wanted to review.
I think it was just the youth.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also the figuring out how to name organizations. We were talking a little bit about that, but we can get to that if we have time. But I do think we should talk about the youth participation. So I just want to open it up to everybody. We had talked about figuring out a way to get some younger folks involved with this committee, and figuring out the best way to do that, whether they should or shouldn't have a vote, whether it was mainly input, and how to attract youth to this endeavor.
I know Aaron had a particular youth member he thought would do a really great job. I love the idea. I think youth have totally fresh perspectives on issues. They're also the reason why we're here, to think about the future generation. I'm also in favor of the youth having voting privileges, but I think we should have an application process to make sure it's just not us picking our favorite youth. We could create maybe a Google Doc, have a brief application, why do you want to be in the Environmental Advisory Committee, and I think we'd probably have to pass some type of ordinance that would allow a youth to be on the committee. So we probably have to do some legwork. Eileen, I don't know, or Tara, I don't know if either of you have thoughts on what we need to do as a committee to make it legally appropriate for a youth member to be joining the committee.
I don't know at this time if there are any age requirements to be appointed to a board or commission. So we can certainly look into that. If there are no age requirements, then most likely the ordinance would just be amended to add another position. Or I know you have some vacancies. Perhaps one of the vacancies could be the youth if the age issue is not there. So we can look into that.
I think, one question I have for the committee is, we're kind of in a transition, we're in a new year and also a new city council. Do we want to push for these, we have 2 appointments that need to be made for District A and I believe District B. And do we want to rush those now, or do we want to wait and allow the new city council members to appoint those positions?
So, this started as a city council endeavor, so I feel like they ought to have the ability to choose who's representing each district. I love the idea of adding a youth person, but I don't think it should be for a particular district. I think we need to have a citywide youth representative, so they wouldn't be one of the district reps. And I also love the application process idea, because folks who are interested take the time to fill out an application, are truly interested and committed. And so I think we want to have some kind of mechanism to allow folks who have the interest and the fortitude to participate, a way to show that.
So why don't we create some criteria really quick? I think high school age is appropriate, or high school or college, or do we want to?
It depends on if there's a legal age requirement. If there's a legal age requirement, it's going to have to be a senior in high school or college. Which then gets at, is that really
youth? 15 to 22. Call that youth. Should we say, let's say 15 to 22, borrowing no legal requirement. Does that sound good to y'all?
I think because we have universities where we have people who are specializing in solid waste management, those kinds of things, I would like to limit it. Not that I wouldn't want high school students to be involved if they could, but at least college students, 1, transportation, getting in and out and back and forth. 2, there are a lot of issues with bringing someone that young in during school time. So I think that logistically, even though there may be high school students who are great and would be interested, that as far as for being a member, college student would certainly work through a better level. Thank you.
I would think so as well, just from a practical standpoint.
And I think a high school student, like during the summertime, there's nothing preventing a high school student like interning with the committee and coming, participating in the meetings, working through the council office with, I don't think that would be an issue.
Well, is this on? Does this work? Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a good idea about the summer, and it could be, if we did want to do the high school, that it could be part of the application that they have to be in communication with their schools, and they have to verify that with us if we want to choose that person. But
Yeah, I love that idea to have a summer intern or 2 with the committee. So maybe we could have a college age student participate regularly for input, and then have maybe 2 summer interns that we do an application process for as well.
We're using the idea of participating, but we're talking about actually recommending voting member of the committee, or just having somebody with almost like an advisory status?
I'm personally in favor of voting. I think it adds some legitimacy. It will feel empowering for that individual to be on the committee in a real way. That's my vote.
I agree. Me too.
If they're going to be voting level, I guess just personally, I would recommend that be a college age.
Yeah. I think we're all in agreement. We want someone in college, so ages 18 to 22, in college. The only concern I have about an intern being on the committee in the summer, I love the idea, but who's going to manage that intern, support that intern? Interns take a lot of work. And so I don't know if the city already has internships. I do think this would be an incredible learning experience for an intern to understand how government works, how things get passed. But
I nominate the committee chair.
I'll take it.
Right.
I would take it.
So we regularly have a lot of interns throughout the year. In the spring and fall, they are typically college age. But in the summertime, we're looking at expanding that to high school age folks as well that intern both with resilience and sustainability as well as emergency preparedness. So they'll already be working with us on different things, and so this might be something else that we can look at.
Great.
that sounds like a great solution.
I'm sorry to be the only person who does not think that the college student should have a vote. I think that some of these things are very, very critical going forward and recommendations. So it concerns me because of not maybe someone who doesn't understand the gravity of a vote. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Any other comments? So it sounds like what we are deciding here is we would like to add another member to the committee. That would be a youth member, an at-large youth member, so from any district. That member would be between the ages of 18 and 22 and attending a local university. The application process will be a Google form, and what questions should be in that Google form? It could be a statement about what the EAC is, what it does, and we would require a resume, and we could ask, anyone have any, like, obviously why do you want to be on the Environmental Advisory Committee, but any other questions that we should include?
There is an appointment process that's required by law, and so all of those requirements would have to be followed. And I think that before you make a specific recommendation, that we need to do that research on the age and give you the information on the appointment process.
There's a whole application you have to fill out. Right.
If you recall, when you all were appointed, it has to go through the City Council Government Affairs Committee. Whatnot.
So if we had our own, like, application process that we reviewed and discussed publicly, but then then the second ladder process would follow suit. But you're saying that may not work.
The committee does not have a right of appointment on its own. It
Got
has to come to the council.
Got it.
So I think our
So I think our recommendation could be, we recommend that the city council review the possibility for a youth member on the committee and do research and look for what the requirements would be to do that, and that we support X, Y, and Z. Like, we could specifically say we think it should be somebody from a college, 18 to 22, blah, 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 and please look into that and, if possible, add that.
Right, so the ordinance, the way it's written right now, there are requirements for somebody needs to be from different areas of expertise, and so you would amend the ordinance to add, these other criteria that you're putting together, and then if it would be an at-large appointment or, something like that.
And so today we could vote on what that criteria should be, or should we wait?
I think that you I think you should discuss what you think it should be, but I wouldn't recommend a vote at this time because you need more information.
I think we've got a good summary. 18.2. I'm thinking most of us would prefer both. Local university. Okay.
Just on the voting spot, I'm going to second Cynthia's concern about that. I've served as a student advisor before when I was in college on advisory boards that also recommended policy to administration. And we weren't given voting power, it was just an advisory role, and I think it worked out well. So that would be my support.
And that's a more appropriate thing for us to vote on today, if anything, is like the internships or some advisory. And I don't know if you can call it advisory, it might just be like an internship. It seems a lot more appropriate than trying to set up a voting role organization, at least right now, based on what the legal advice is.
Why don't we get more information? I know Aaron was really in favor of the vote as well, but we can just see how it goes and do some more research. And either way, it's going to be great to have, I think, in addition to the committee. I think we can move on. One other recommendation that did pass at the last meeting that Aaron's subcommittee led, which was doing a joint briefing between the city council and incoming administration from the Environmental Advisory Committee with a recommendation of priorities in terms of resilience. And I just wanted to open up to the current administration and current city council staff about how we should proceed with that recommendation and doing a presentation to the city council with our recommendations for the incoming administration.
Wait, sorry,
So one of the recommendations that we voted on last meeting was to do a joint briefing from the Environmental Advisory Committee to the incoming city council and incoming administration together to kind of break up silos, if you will, instead of doing a briefing separately, just do a briefing together, and how that we could best coordinate accomplishing that.
I think I know there's a transition team and a process for that. I can't speak to that end of it, but I know we'd be happy to help kind of coordinate from our end, set up meetings. We've done some briefings for councilmember elects just to kind of get them up to speed on what's going on in the city, and we'd be happy to discuss like what that looks like. But as for a joint meeting between the incoming council and the transition, the mayor organization, that's going to be a lot of pieces, and I would defer along with that.
Yeah, I think there's probably a process set up to do it separately, to do a transition, and then how was talking about the incoming council members would probably be easiest. But that could certainly happen.
Okay.
I think it's generally up to each elected official how they would like to get their briefing, and you can certainly reach out to all of their offices and say that that's what you would like to do, and that you're just available to brief them and would like to brief them, and you're proposing joint, and if you can arrange the schedules, it might be possible, but it's going to be up to them to decide.
I think that's all the questions we had for the last topic.
Okay, are y'all aware of what type of summer jobs y'all have for the youth? Because I think it'll be a good idea for y'all to add a youth to the advisory committee, because they have more. It's good for them to have input on their future, but future have input on their own future. I just have a question like, are y'all aware of what type of summer jobs they have?
We do not provide jobs, but I know the city's probably providing some summer jobs.
Actually,
Like, what kind of jobs they offer for this summer?
so they actually just did an announcement. The mayor has a program every year for summer jobs, and I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting. There's quite a few, and I'll find a reference point for that. But there is a major summer jobs program, and the announcement just came out this week in regards to youth and the ages. There are a variety of jobs. A lot of the youth will work in city departments. They have a lot of businesses in the city that also will sponsor positions for those summer youth jobs.
And so it's a great program from that standpoint. But our committee is just an internship.
I know it's a great program, I like the work, and I was just saying, like, I just want to know if they have more offers on jobs available. Like you said, they're going to be working for themselves. I just want to know if they have more of them available. And this is a job as well.
Is it the job one? Is that like a portal that jobs are available?
Yeah, that's, I think that's a really.
Right. So this just came out for 2018 job opportunities. And so there is a Nord Summer Youth Program, and there is a specific way, youth camps, all of those. I'm just trying to scroll down, if you will, so I can get to what they need to do. I know they're hiring lifeguards, people who work in offices, they'll be working in a lot of different departments. So it's ages 13 through 21, Lola Youth Works program. We'll give you the contact. It's Workforce Development. The number is 658-4531. That's the number people can call to find out more about the Summer Youth Program.
All right.
All right, thank you.
I think we're good on this topic, Marianne.
So moving on, we had said we wanted to talk some more about composting. And Liz, I'm going to kick it over to you to just sort of start the discussion. We had wanted to talk about a variety of things. I just want to note that we are 20 minutes behind.
So I'm going to actually kick it to Caitlin, who's been.
Okay.
So we've been, as a structured committee, we've had different topics and worked through legislation based on recommendations. I know Caitlin's been working on the recommendations from the recycling committee and recycling committee, I guess, for the recycling at events. And that included composting as well. Do you want to give us an update?
So Councilmember Ramsey was proposing an ordinance to have required recycling and composting at events for certain permitted public events, and then also to phase in down the road required recycling and composting for curbside pickup. So that is in the process, So yes, we're in the process of working that through, and it's going to be proposed next. It's been introduced. Okay, it's been introduced, and it'll go to the Public Works and Environmental Committee next week.
Just earlier this meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. There are some issues with the ordinance as proposed, and so that my recommendation is that it come back to our subcommittee for further discussion and review.
Would you be able to discuss what your concerns are so we as a committee can talk about that?
I would propose that it come back to subcommittee. There are some issues with the ordinance as drafted, and I apologize when I did not realize it was being introduced. My understanding was that I was told it was only going to be a discussion. I was also in the middle of Mardi Gras, so as I completed Mardi Gras and have time to review, there are some issues. Thank you.
Great. So then, I guess the next step there is for the subcommittee to reconvene. Do we want to schedule that, or?
Well, since it was on the schedule to be proposed next week, I didn't know if we would be able to talk about anything now, so that we could hopefully keep it moving forward if we could, or figure some things out if possible.
After this meeting, I'm available to meet for everyone.
Great. I think that's it.
Okay, that was easy. We're caught up, pretty much. So the next topic is when we did the framework resilience document, we also had talked about having some specific community actions related to resilience. So we have like an overarching framework, but now we wanted to talk about some specific recommendations. And so we had a subcommittee meeting by phone, and Nick and Arthur and Liz and I got on the phone and talked about some specific thoughts for a resilience report and recommendations. And so we had a handful of things that came out of that conversation, and then I wanted to throw it to the committee for other thoughts, because I think resilience is an overarching topic. It's kind of like saying environmental policy, and so there are lots of things that can fit under that. And so this is actually an opportunity, obviously within our focus, to make some important recommendations for the future of New Orleans. And I also feel like, you know, it's our 300th anniversary, and so there's a lot of discussion about resilience for the future, and this is a great moment to do that. So this could be a really important conversation framing the future of our city. So Nick and Arthur both very much brought forward the concept of tire disposal, that they've seen, you know, burning of tires and mass disposal of tires under different highways, and that it's a real problem in New Orleans East especially, but I can also attest that it is also a problem in Central City, because I have personally picked up over 50 tires from various lots. So we should, I think that's something that we could explore and talk about, and try and assist with a way to move forward with that, if Cynthia, you're good with that.
Actually, I'm really glad that you brought that up. It's a massive problem. It is one that we're dealing with nationwide and working with LDQ this year and in prior years. This year, though, we've had 2 people arrested by LDQ. There are actually cameras now that we have, and LDQ has placed, that aided in the arrest of 2 people, and they're going through municipal court. There are other arrests in the process. In January of this year, we've been working on an ordinance for quite a while with the law department, but the ordinance was passed through city council that will allow my sanitation rangers only in this area to bring people into administrative hearings with safety and permits. And so we've done sweeps of tire shops in the past. We'll do it again. And we are looking, and will be looking at whether they are in compliance with LDQ. And if they are not, then they will go through that hearing process and fines will be levied. We work very closely with LDQ's Criminal Investigation Division, and we'll continue to do that, but we are constantly trying to make sure that citizens know they can put, if they're eligible for collection of garbage and recycling by the city, they can put 4 tires out on their second collection for our contractors to pick up. If they are not eligible for collection, they can bring up to 4 tires to us at our second Saturday drop-off. And we will collect them. There is no fee. But it is very, very important that people not put tires in vacant lots. We're working with mosquito, termite, and rodent control. It is a massive issue. We are going to be doing even more tire collections. Last year we collected over 35,000 tires. That's why this is a major issue and problem. And we collect generally about 20,000 every year. We are working, as I mentioned, with LDQ. We're working with New Orleans Business Alliance and other groups to look at ways. We were hoping, right now there is only one LDQ approved waste tire processor in the city of New Orleans, and they have said that due to their costs, they have been increasing the cost of the tires they accept directly from citizens or even from tire shops. So this is a massive problem in our city right now. We are just wanting to make sure citizens know that they have a way to dispose of their tires. Now, tire shops, this is the cost of doing business. The volumes of tires that we collect, when you see those large tire piles under the interstate, the burnings that are happening, that's not from your average citizen. And we are working very hard with NLPD and LDQ to do the maximum enforcement. We're working with the judges on this. People need to follow their very strict rules for the disposal of tires and collection and storage of tires. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So we will certainly include that in the discussion. Liz, did you want to? No, you're good. Okay. Another thing that we talked about was color of streets. In some cities nationwide, as they repair the roads, they are painting them a different color instead of black because it reduces the overall heat inside the city. There's a thing that some people are aware of. It's called City Island effect, and it's hotter inside cities due to the colors of the roads and the fact that we have so many buildings, and so the heat intensifies, and that's an issue for a variety of things. For safety, there's some science that shows people get more angry when they're hotter. There's, for violence and things, that people are more likely to engage in violence, and then also there's thoughts about the use of air conditioning and cooling mechanisms and sort of reducing the need for that as you cool the city. So we were talking about perhaps adding a provision. We're always working on our roads here, and so as we work on our roads, perhaps we can think about changing the color as well when we work on it.
Sort of to that idea, it's also very beneficial to have light colored roofs. So I don't know if there's anything that could be something that we could do to encourage people that when they get a new roof, that they do something like that, or a rebate or something.
Well, the third topic was green roofs.
Oh, there you go.
So that's perfect. Yeah. So it could be either, either or. That if you redo your roof, you could make it a lighter color or have some kind of incentive for green roofs. I'd be interested in also just talking in general about incentives, and there was an idea of a resident resilience credit in our last meeting, but maybe a business also resilience credit, or again, it doesn't have to be called resilience, but the idea of incentivizing companies and individuals for doing green infrastructure and doing water projects, also doing things like white roofs, I think is something that is low-hanging fruit for the city. And I'm sure some of that's going to be being in discussion right now with the transition team. So that's something I'd like to add, Marianne, is just general incentives for green infrastructure, and include energy and white roofs as part of that. I think that's a great idea, and we could split it into residential and commercial. Yeah. Great. So if anybody else has thoughts, feel free to throw them at us. It doesn't have to be right this moment, but I'm interested in any other discussion. And we will start putting together this report over the next month or so. The thought was to have a listening session next meeting, bring in some folks who might have some expertise on these things, and hear some thoughts on that, and then have the document prepared for April. For what it's worth, the Regional Sustainability and Resilience Committee met yesterday, and we discussed several priorities from the sustainability platform, which we're calling now the Love Your City platform, for people who don't like buzzwords. But the committee said that really water management was a really big thing, and energy management as well, and workforce through those efforts as being a priority, and also having a holistic framework. So I think one of the things our committee can continue to reinforce, and we did in the last recommendation when we said that we hope that the resilience office or some form of it that's holistic, that's looking across departments, still exists. I think that's just something that I wanted to report to you all, that committee said, it doesn't matter what you call it, but we need departments collaborating and working collaboratively, and it'd probably be helpful to have at least one, maybe a department itself, in charge of that cohesive framework and working across silos. So just want to report that to the committee in case it inspired any other topics. That's great. So I wanted to mention just a couple of other things. We, in one of our previous reports, we had talked about, banning styrofoam, or I shouldn't say banning, phasing out styrofoam, phasing out plastic straws, phasing out plastic bags. I know all of those have some controversy and heartburn associated with them. But I think we should talk about that again in this resilience report. And then one other thing I really want to talk about is bottled water. And here's why. I go to all of these events about resilience and environment, and there are piles and piles of bottles of water. And that gives me a lot of heartburn, because those bottles, some of them biodegrade, most of them don't. They sit in landfills forever. And I just think it's something that we as a city should be aware of. We really shouldn't be serving bottled water at our events. Our city water is actually fine, especially if it's filtered. We're lucky enough to live in a city where it's drinkable. and that's just something I think we should include and talk about in the long-term discussion about resilience, is phasing out bottled water at community city events where it's not necessary.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to think through. So we made those recommendations about phasing out styrofoam, several months ago, and we got probably some feedback. And I think it'd be a good idea to bring in maybe some more speakers to address any concerns that went around the first time. And I will say that, Audubon Institute is already phasing out plastics. They're phasing out single-use items. I mean, we live on the ocean, we love our seafood, and we know that that's a problem for the environment. And I guess my thought, I think your point's really good, Marianne, and I guess I'm trying to think through what, if any, maybe if anyone in the room has, thoughts, but what is the pushback, and how can we address those concerns so that we can move forward, that's the idea.
Is the question, what's the pushback on, what do you want to call it, restrictions, a ban on styrofoam, that kind of steps?
Yeah, so if we wanted to phase out styrofoam as a city, or phase out single-use plastics, or something like straws.
So I guess as a general comment, maybe parting comment from the committee, what I would say to the committee more is, instead of jumping to the step of banning something or making something mandatory, I think it would be very much in our interests. If we're really looking to get buy-in, right? Making something mandatory doesn't necessarily get you buy-in, it can almost make things worse. If the goal is to get more people recycling, get more people not using styrofoam, what incentives can you put out there to encourage them and inspire them to do it before you get to that step of making something an absolute, right? So what concerns me is some of the things we do jump to the role of we're going to get our way, by doing this without necessarily putting an incentive, dangling a carrot out there first. And I see a lot of opportunity when you do go out there and talk to people about, explain to them the problems of styrofoam, explain to them show them what happens when you get microparticle plastic out there. They're disgusted by it and they get inspired by it and they want to do it. But if we're not careful about how we roll that kind of policy out, you do get backlash. You get, why are you trying to tell me how to run the business? Why are you adding these costs? Well, I don't understand it. So I think there's a very practical side to the ideas that we have that really needs a seat at the table. And I think you'll find that if you don't want to get to the point of putting this policy out there and then having it blow back on you, everybody knows it was well intended.
If I can make a comment on that, I'm really glad that you brought that up, Jeff, because that's a policy choice on how to approach reaching a policy goal. And I think that we've seen around the nation and in various different fields that I don't know what kind of incentives you're thinking about, but paying people to do the right thing, that requires money. If you're talking about incentive, you're talking about money. And when you're talking about the role of government regulation is to help communities and businesses get to the right point, we ban certain emissions because it harms public health. We ban, we require airbags for public health. That's a requirement, and if you don't do it, you're fined. We are looking, for example, in the recycling ordinance at mandatory recycling and composting phased in over time because if you look at our zero waste policy of 2050, the only way to reach that is to require it through, if you don't do it, you get a fine, and that's where successful communities have been able to do it. It requires a phase-in, public education, which is built in, but when you're talking about, affordable housing, for example, the city has a voluntary affordable housing policy, but there are no developers taking advantage of that. So, you're talking about, well, then to get there is going to require mandatory inclusionary housing. So that is a way to achieve things through incentives versus, the fining penalty stage. And in environmental areas, it has been proven and shown through national policy and local policy that the only way to achieve human health benefits of environmental policy is through mandatory regulation.
And I guess I want to just go back on the idea of an incentive. I think an incentive definitely does not have to be all cash. The city has enormous sets of tools at its disposal to make it easier for organizations that cooperate with it. There are a lot of efforts that it can do. Even when we talked about electric vehicles, it was a matter of making permitting easier for a building owner that installed an electric vehicle charger. If you're talking about trying to incentivize getting rid of styrofoam, maybe it involves something in the health department that makes their life easier if they don't have styrofoam around. There's a lot of things you can do that incentivize business owners to cooperate, but before anybody talks about mandatory, you can't get angry at somebody for doing something you didn't ask them to do. And so if we're not out there educating, even trying to educate business owners and residents on recycling, I've never gotten anything in my residence on how to recycle. I should get something once or twice a year that explains just how to recycle, how to get a can. I mean, I never get that. I've actually just thought as a company putting door hangers out there while we're advertising for ourselves, just telling people how to do it because it's so frustrating that we don't see it. I understand there's budget concerns. I'm not picking on Cynthia, but we shouldn't get frustrated with people for doing something we didn't ask them to do and explain how to do it.
Just to note though, we have done door hangers to 130,000 households twice. In addition to that, we've had neighborhoods like Lakeview who've done it as a community. In addition to that, when the new carts came out, every one of those carts should have had a flyer in that cart that talked about garbage as well as recycling. So, but we're not saying that everybody has gotten it. We know they haven't. So, because people change or move or whatever, we're continuing, and that's why this committee, that's why we do Keep New Orleans Beautiful. And you're right, there is a cost. We've been trying to do these magnetized, which City of Savannah does and some others, to remind people this is what you need to do. Having it on the website, putting the flyers out, going to all the community meetings, those are things we're doing, but it's still not enough. So, no, I appreciate that, anything that we can do in that. If I could just to mention something coming out, this is through Keep Louisiana Beautiful, and I just forgot to mention it, but it's so important. They have a Healthy Communities grant. That's one of those benefits of Keep Louisiana, Keep New Orleans Beautiful, is we do get all of the information about upcoming grants, and the deadline for this grant is April 6th. They could go on the Keep Louisiana Beautiful website, keeplouisianabeautiful.org/grants. And throughout the year, there are grants that are listed that help neighborhoods and communities. And it's just one of those things, again, we want people to continue to apply for. I'm meeting with the Resilience Office with some possible grant persons even next week on some things regarding recycling. And we do it all the time. We apply. We don't always get it, but we're always out there doing it. Thank you.
all these points are really, really important, and I think that, it's a fine line. When do we create the incentive? When do we require something? I think it's a case-by-case situation where we have to ask ourselves, what's best for our community? What's the most realistic thing that's going to work? And even with the case of tires, I would think the reason tires are being dumped is because people don't have a place to go put them. And so if
They don't want to pay.
well, so how do we create a free place? I mean,
There's a disposal fee built into getting the tire.
Okay, so.
well, and I'm not trying to actually solve this problem. I'm just trying to say, like, is there a creative solution where we can repurpose tires, create something else, because it's like a an economic driven thing? I mean, how do we actually figure out why? Yeah.
So that's why we've been working with New Orleans Business Alliance, myself, Code Enforcement, Office of Sustainability, and really part of that is the issue of you're right, the market out there for tires and recycling of the tires. That's also why we keep reminding people again, they can put 4 tires out, they can bring 4 tires to us. This is no cost. The tires is that you see dumped primarily, those large piles of tires, that's not coming from your house or my house. This is coming from, and I will say it, secondary tire shops. There is, and we've looked at things, I've proposed to LDEQ, maybe the tire shops need to put some kind of a unique identification in those tires. So as they're passed from place to place, and I had an intern who did that study, it takes law to change some of this, and some of this is at state level. So I meet with them, we attend committee meetings. We're going to continue to work on this because it is a serious health issue. That's why mosquito termite control, LDEQ, we're working together on this topic, but we have to solve it at the source, and that's why doing more enforcement and bringing non-compliant shop owners in and doing full force of law will be important. I'm saying all that to say, please, please, because as we start doing this, we're going to receive pushback. We are very clear that when we do those kinds of things in enforcement, people will say that we are trying to hurt a small business. We're trying to stop economic development. Well, we have visited tire shops multiple times. We have a list of some that will be targeting because they have not been compliant. Please support us as we try to solve this very serious issue.
You have our full support, Cynthia, and I would say, this, anytime you require people to do something, they might have that vision of, oh, you're trying to hurt my business. And I think people, the same goes for getting people to recycle at a festival. If a festival is going to say, oh, that's, in actuality, it doesn't have any additional cost to recycle at a festival, according to at least one vendor in the city who said that exactly is true.
I've just met with French Quarter Festival. We've been talking about ways they can try to do recycling and composting for years. We're having another meeting coming up very soon in regards to that again, even to try to work through to start with some of their smaller events. They actually have the cost estimates when they tried to do it and said, we can't figure how to do this in their budget, so we're going to be meeting again and trying to find some other ways for this to happen. It depends upon the footprint of the event, the size of the event. It may not cost for some events, but that is not correct. And that's why it's so important that we have all of the information before we make general statements from 1 or 2 people. It could be a significant cost, but we're working through all of that. It's not that we're not pushing forward, but we just need to be real clear, especially from this committee, to give the facts that are correct. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I'm I know we're jumping into solving a lot of these things in terms of both tires and recycling and events. I'm making a point to say that, you know, we have to ask in each situation, what is it going to work? Is it going to be a law? Is it going to be an incentive? And where does our responsibility lie? And just as you say, hey, we really want your support, and these tires, these businesses are going to say that, I think the same could go for someone who's saying, hey, we really need businesses to recycle. We want your support there too. And I don't think what I'm saying is fact from one vendor. So that's just one vendor, and there might be other vendors that might be more expensive. And so, you know, we're not trying to support only certain vendors either. Again, I'm meant to be speaking in the hypothetical here. This is all a tug of war of a carrot and stick. Okay, so we have tire disposal, white streets, white roofs, incentives, plastic, single-use items. Mary, any other topics, or anyone else have other topics that they want to bring up?
I think for this year, something that we can, is this on? I think something for this year that we can discuss was, I think, probably not with Brett's idea, of really making a commitment to inviting crews to come in and really get the conversation going about what we can do to improve Mardi Gras waste, Mardi Gras throws, their involvement. So I think that's something that we could work on and focus on this year. Another topic.
I think it was briefly mentioned, but I'd just like to pick up that if there's any way to continue the conversation around stormwater management, especially at the residential level, as Nora launches their community application program in Gentilly, as Nola Reddy moves forward with their community education around stormwater and what to do during heavy rains. This is something we're going to continue to see throughout the city, and I think we can all align with that and see if there's any aspects of this that we can also start to tackle. Important.
I'll just throw in one comment on that. You know, I know we've talked about several concepts that the neighbor equipment. Well, I think it was Arthur that had asked repeatedly to like get the neighborhood leadership group. I've got their association within the city, but the neighborhood engagement folks involved, because a lot of the ideas we're talking about, the neighborhood groups have an enormous amount of energy and control is not the right word, but influence over their folks in that area. And I really haven't seen us leverage that to get them inspired to communicate some of this down at the residential level. So as far as taking care of storm drains or dealing with litter, encouraging recycling, a lot of those groups, I know for a fact, a couple of them that would jump on that instantly. I just haven't seen them reached out to try to push some of these policies out. So I don't know if that's something that's on the committee's plans for the future. I would hope that with all these great ideas, again, part of like our communication and our outreach is getting them on board.
I agree that there is a lot of tremendous opportunity there, and I think that's something that we're really excited to continue to build upon. We have done several initiatives to try and get that adopted through the adopted catch basin that was launched last year. Our office does a tremendous amount of outreach throughout the year to neighborhood groups around stormwater, green infrastructure, low-cost measures. It's something that we're going to continue to target this year. We've leveraged some disaster grants to actually put towards that in order to further that. And this all ties into empowering residents and empowering communities to understand what they can do apart from just trying to find elevation money for their home. What is it that can actually empower them to do and love best measures from either cleaning out their storm drains to low-cost measures that they can do around their home to reduce the burden and the impact of water that's actually going into the storm drain. There's several organizations, community organizations that are out there that are doing this kind of work, and so we're looking to collaborate across several city departments as well as our nonprofit partners within this to make sure that we're all speaking from the same point and that we're capturing and communicating with as many residents as we can. A big part of this is changing who is actually communicating, who the actual voice is of this information. We can push this out as much as we want to, and we reach a tremendous audience through our outreach efforts, but we certainly don't reach everybody, because not everybody comes to us for their information. And so what we're trying to do is change the focal point from where people get their information, from using community groups, neighborhood organizations, faith-based organizations this year, and to engage them and empower them on how to communicate better about this. And then also to bring that information back to us so we can track who's being reached, so we can know where the gaps are, so we can continue to address those issues. But then also as we track that, we build that into our outreach credit that we get for the community rating system, which then helps us on the risk reduction or risk transfer component of it.
I'll throw one last idea out there of something that Liz's group, Life City, does well is to rank neighborhood associations that have the highest rates of whatever you want to measure, catch basin care, recycling, or whatever. You don't have to show the lowest ones, but you can call out the highest ones. It might be a way of inspiring others.
And I know every year there's, I think it's in Nola, they do a neighborhood, basically like the best neighborhood in the city. They do a, I guess what do you call it, like a vote or whatever. And it could be, we could work with them to kind of say, hey, also include who makes the environment up. So there's just different ways that we could make it more visible for everyone.
So, kind of in summary, what I'm going to do is kind of keep a list of these topics. So we have Mardi Gras, during Mardi Gras, we have stormwater management, we have neighborhood engagement. We have several topics that Mary Ann's going to be focusing in on for the next meeting, which is the tires, the white streets, white roofs, the incentives, single-use plastics. I'm going to recommend, April will be our listening meeting for Mary Ann and Mary Ann's topic, and then and we can decide if we want to do another listening meeting in May, Mary Ann. We've talked about having 3 meetings as opposed to, but this is, I guess, one of the 3. So ideally we'll have an action meeting in May, and I think I'd also propose that half the meeting, if we can in May, could be a listening meeting to either the new administration or to the new city council. I mean, we are the environmental advisory committee to the city council, which means, we service the city council. So I want to make sure we hear what they want us to support them on. We can definitely be a conduit for priorities in the community, but maybe in that meeting in May, we can also try to hear from them. Does that sound like a plan for the next?
So what are we going to do for March?
This March.
Yeah. So I was saying we could
sorry, because the new administration isn't until May, huh?
Right. So if we do a listening session in March,
listening session in March.
prepare a document for April.
Yeah, pass the document in April.
Mm-hmm. And then do a
listening to the council in May.
That's right.
Sounds good to me for a short-term plan. And hopefully by then we'll have a new appointments made, and that sounds good.
All right. So we wanted to. Everybody good on this? Do we need to talk about anything else on this topic? Okay. So if there's any other public comment on anything else that we have talked about, or if anybody has thoughts on resilience or anything, we wanted to do that now before we do any voting, but I don't think we have any voting, do we? No. Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to add?
Did we end up taking a final vote on Aaron's resilience document last time?
Yes.
Yes, except for the
Yeah, and we had a final document. Essence couldn't be here today. She's kind of heading our communication subcommittee. I did text with her earlier. She's going to do a press release every time we pass a document in conjunction with the Spears group. So hopefully the city, we can coordinate on that. But she should be coordinating with them to put up Aaron's document, our document, on the committee's website. So that should be up and shortly. That is an issue in general as we move forward. Continuing, I know this is all a volunteer gig, but continuing to educate the public that we exist, getting their feedback, also promoting the work and that has been done so that it goes to good use. I know something we all want to do. Well, I want to thank everybody, and especially Jeff. We're going to miss you. You've done an amazing job. We really appreciate all the hard work you've put forth on this committee. All right. I vote to end the meeting. Motion. Second.
I get to say something?
All in favor? ask all the,
I signed a call to say something. I came in.
You made your comment earlier?
No, I was speaking up, I was asking them a question. I was running for mayor, that's why I came here, like, I just to talk to y'all and ask y'all for y'all support and everything. After me running for mayor, because they had made it so difficult for me to get on the ballot, I had to talk to Xavier, went to City Hall, asked to speak with the mayor and everything, I wanted to get on the ballot because, like one of y'all, committee said, like, the better of New Orleans, like, and I see the better of New Orleans is the first, the better of the people. And I have two projects, like I had saw school, they say they want 100% students in college. Without God, I don't see how, but I do have answers to, like, make sure they can get done. 100% college students, like, you know what I'm saying? And,
Yeah, we did.
like, again, it was so hard to get on the ballot.